I'm Stephen Dozier, born and raised in Long Island, New York. I've always kind of considered myself an entertainer. From a young age, I could recall myself kind of putting on shows for family members and making them laugh. Me, my brother, my cousins, we put together like groups and act out scenes from movies. And even when I started school, I took it to school and kind of got like a lot of attention without even trying, with just being myself, just, you know, being Steven. A lot of people gravitated toward my kind of personality. It's kind of like contagious. Like when you get around me, I create vibes, so to speak. I create spaces where, people have fun, people enjoy themselves, people smile. I create smiles. Where there's no smiles, I create them. Yeah, a lot of people when I was younger, they thought that I was craving attention. I was trying to get attention, and that was never the case. I had attention at home, whether it be from my parents, my grandparents, auntie, uncles. It never was lacking of attention on the home front. And as I said, when I went out into school, I got attention. It's just that when I got that attention, I didn't want to let it go. Like that feeling, that rush, it was something that I always loved. I never had this fear of speaking in public. Like I found out that that was something that people do. Like I've never had an issue with screaming across the cafeteria to get everybody's attention to crack a joke or to do something stupid. When I got the opportunity in high school, I decided that I wanted to like reach the masses, so to speak. So I had this opportunity to do the morning announcements, and I got one of my friends with me. She Simone Parker. Shout out to her. We did a great job. I implemented music. I implemented music, jokes of the day, all types of things that prior to me just didn't happen in a regular morning show. I was the Breakfast Club before the Breakfast Club. That's a fact. Like I was doing this in like 2007, 2006, and anybody that heard it can tell you I had a character on there named Steve Doge. That's exactly how I said it. Sounds stupid now, but that's what it was. And people would see me in the hallway, and I'd get recognized by that. And then people that knew me from me would recognize me for Steven. But it was nice. It was good. I like to entertain. I like to make people smile. I like to make the people laugh. When people are upset, even when I'm upset, I find myself making people happy, and in a way that makes me happy. I've just always been that way. No matter what I can do to generate smiles, I'll go out my way to make people smile. It's always been who I am. A little later on in life, starting my podcast and doing my podcast, I enjoy talking to people, and if I can, you know, get a couple co-hosts and we can sit down and talk about things that matter to me, but kind of resonate with everybody, it makes for a great show, and that's what we have. As far as So I've Been Thinking the podcast, as you can see, the hat SIBK is Think spelled backwards, which is a brand that I also started back in 2013 with some great friends of mine, and it's pretty much product with concept, because stemming back to this creativity and this entertainment, it was always different from everybody else. How I moved and how I did things was always different from everybody else. So the whole creative process behind Think is, it's the same word, it's just spelled backwards because I see it differently. I see things differently, and I even have it tatted that way to where it makes more sense. But pretty much it's just a different way of thinking. I remember back in high school, in addition to like doing the morning announcements, I had the opportunity. They asked me for a couple occasions to host certain auditorium events like talent shows and even just regular like assemblies. They just wanted me to host them, and I even was a part of certain talent shows. I remember one time, I'm a huge Motown fan. A lot of Motown music out of Detroit was huge. I heard it growing up, so it all kind of, I know for my age I shouldn't really know what that is, but Huge fan of the Temptations. And when I was younger, it's actually crazy because in elementary school, I was asked to be a Temptation in a group. My teacher at the time, I didn't know what it was, but that was my introduction, as well as at home hearing the music. But then when we got to high school, I was a part of another group, and we ended up doing the same group, but this time tighter moves. It was great, man. I didn't get to be David Ruffin, who was the lead singer. A little upset about that, but definitely a great performance, and it was something that nobody was doing. We were lip singing a song from the 70s, and we put on a full dance in suits. Like, nobody was doing that. Like, who was doing that? But we were confident in what we were doing because that's just who we are. We respected the music, we respected the craft, and that was our way of expressing ourselves. I also was a little rapper. I was a rapper at one point. I was a part of a group we started called the Renegades. I didn't start it. I just joined in because it was all my friends and I wanted parts. Whether I had to, I was trying to get in anyway. I was going to be the dancer, the singer, help me write the raps, whatever I can do to get a part of the Renegades. I wanted to be a part of the Renegades. I missed the first talent show. I was on punishment, so I couldn't go to the first talent show. But I recall the second talent show. I think it was just me and Levi, and we had this song we did, and I wish I remember the name of the song, but we had everybody come out, man. It was a great feeling. Like at no point was I nervous. Like I don't recall ever being nervous for any of those events. Like I know I get nervous before, like when I first hear about it, I get nervous. Like, oh, you want me to host it? But when I get up there, it's just like, oh, okay, this is not that bad. Like, but I haven't really been booed yet, so I'm assuming that has to be a different feeling. But as of like now, like I don't mind the crowd and things like that. And I embraced it in high school. I was a part of those moves. When they asked me to do it, I was with it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be out there. I wanted people to know who I was, hear my voice, hear my jokes, tell me if they were corny, tell me if they were good. Like I just wanted the feedback, and I knew the best way to do that was to put myself out there. So that's what I did. Maybe March of 2010, my mother was on a train coming from a party. One of her friends had a birthday party. She was on a train going back home, and she fell out on the train and had a massive stroke. And basically, I recall being in the room. I just took a shower. It was nighttime, maybe like midnight. And I got a phone call saying that your mom fell out on the train. So I'm like, what? My mom fell on the train? That's weird. Is her leg okay? Like, is she okay? Everything's good? And no, they said it's a lot more serious. She had a stroke. So at the time, I had no idea what a stroke was. I've only heard about it. So again, not really panicking in my head. I'm like, well, where are you guys? Jamaica Hospital. I go over there, speed over there. And it was bad. She had a massive stroke, which pretty much at the time they deemed her completely paralyzed. And they just said she wouldn't make it. There's like, it was a bad one. Her breath, because she suffered from high blood pressure, but apparently she wasn't on her meds as much as she should have been. So because of that, it led to the stroke. So for a few months after that, she was in intensive care and somehow pulled out of it. I recall asking God, like, I'll take my mother any way you can give her to me. I said, just don't take her away. Because at the time, me and my mom, we weren't as close. Again, I lived with my father, so me and my mom wasn't as close as we could have been, for anybody's fault. I think a large part of it was my fault, harboring feelings and things like that. But at that moment, everything changed. Everything started over. She could do no wrong. I just wanted my mom. And I got that. She pulled through, and we were on the road to recovery. Throughout that process, now it's about June now, and right before my dad went on vacation, I told him to go see my mom. She was recovering, and I was still recovering in the hospital, and I told him to go see her. He didn't want to go see her like that for obvious reasons. I mean, it's tough to see your loved one like that, regardless of your relationship. He still loves her. That's the mother of his children, so it was tough for him. But he went and did it. I like to think that he did it for me. So he goes to do it. He sees her. It messed him up. He told me all about it, how bad it was, and how he didn't want to see her like that. And then he decides to go on vacation. He goes on vacation completely fine to Puerto Rico, and he has a massive heart attack and dies. We had just got slapped in the face with the sudden death of my father. And at the time, I was a clown. I was living carefree. I had a little scared with my mom. I wanted her to get better, but I was still the carefree 18-year-old that, anyone would be. And it wasn't until I realized what the situation that I was in that I had to step up to the plate because I just felt like I felt compelled. I remember before my dad dying, we were just in random conversation, my brother, him, and myself, and he said, "Steven, when I die, this is all yours." And he looked or panted around the house. And for years that taunted me. So I felt that. I kind of felt like it was my responsibility. So I matured overnight. People say certain things are not overnight. Growth isn't overnight. You got to give people time. Certain people you got to give time. But I realized that you can change overnight. You can. You can wake up a whole new day and not do anything remotely close to what you did the day prior. And live life according to that for the remainder until I guess something else happens to alter that, or that's just you. But I changed overnight. I stepped up to the plate. I found myself being 18, 19, paying a mortgage, painting a house, extending driveways, staying on top of property taxes, everything that I was not with no help of anybody really. In 2018, it was about a Sunday. I got a phone call saying that my mom had pancreatic cancer. And when I was told that, I knew immediately that it was bad. Because I don't break down with news. I kind of process news. I think about things. I overthink things. Pretty much how the brand started. It's not like a coincidence. I've always been an overthinker. So I didn't even overthink it. When I was told that, it didn't take me Google to see life expectancy. I didn't have to do any of that. I got this gut feeling that I've gotten in several occasions in my life about certain things. And I just knew it was bad. I've only seen stuff like this on television. It's you think about so many different weird things when you get news like that. It's surreal. It's what? And I knew I had to get down to North Carolina. So within the next 5 to 8 hours, I was in my car driving down to North Carolina. So now I'm having an 8-hour conversation kind of with myself about what's going to happen? What am I driving to? What's the scene? I don't even know how to feel because she's not gone yet. Or they always say somebody's gonna die this time, and then they live, and then so all these things. I have 8 hours for my mind to totally, go everywhere. And when I get there, my mom notices me and she greets me, and that's when I realize I have to watch my mom die. She's not dead. She's not comatose. It's not over. I have to now sit here and watch her die. So I decided to start a podcast called So I've Been Thinking the Podcast. SIBK the podcast. And when you initially tell somebody you're starting a podcast, one of the first things they ask you is, what is your podcast about? Well, my podcast isn't necessarily one of those trendy podcasts that might talk about, what's going on at the time. I think when things are necessary, we address them as far as pop culture, politics, and things of that nature. But for the most part, I like to focus on things that I think about and how it resonates with everyone else's mind. And it all started from conversations in my house. I used to host a lot of gatherings in my house back in the day, and it would start off with just like 4 people and end up being 16 people, and we'd be having a conversation. And I wanted to get those moments and capture those moments and reach more people and have more people be a part of these conversations. So that's where it started. So we could talk about anything from what's too many slices on a cold cut sandwich to double standards in society. And we discuss different types of things like that. And we talk about, we kind of make it like, we kind of like put candy and like put the medicine in the candy, so to speak. Like you'll get a gem out of it, but you're gonna chuckle. Like we're saying things that are serious, but in like a joking form sometimes. So it's a good listen. I mean, I'm not just saying that because it's my podcast. It's the general consensus that it's a great podcast. It's actually the greatest in the world. So yeah, so I've been thinking of podcasts. It's on SoundCloud and iTunes, SIBK the podcast.
Yeah, so my name is Marvin Moscow. I'm one of Steven's good friends and also his co-host to his podcast, So I've Been Thinking. I'm sure you guys heard about that. I come from North and South Shore, Long Island. Grew up around that area for my whole life. And I met Steve at church, actually. I think he was singing in the choir or something like that. It was, and I recognized him because we went to the same school. And yeah, I actually met him through somebody else. And then we ditched the guy we met him through. And then me and Steve's been best friends ever since, man. Yeah, so Steve and I actually started the podcast about 2 to 3 years ago now. And it came into fruition at a dinner table, without dinner, just friends talking. And he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. I'm like, dang, that sounds like a great idea. I would definitely love to be down, inviting myself before he even invited me. And he's like, you know what? I was going to ask you. And I'm like, amazing idea. And that's how that podcast came to fruition. We just all hanging out one night, and then he was telling us his plans, and I saw the spark, and I was like, that sounds like a great idea. So once he asked me, I was happy to join, and it's been history ever since. And since joining, I've been able to, I like it because we could switch topics, we could BS, we could do whatever we like. Also, we could get serious. We can do anything, and I feel like getting my thoughts off over that mic is something that, makes me feel real good. So,
my name is Christina Jasmine. I was Steven's 11th grade U.S. history teacher. My first year teaching is when I met Steven. In class, he always kind of liked to be the jokester. Kind of the class clown, cracking jokes, but when it came down to it and he needed to get to work, he would. I would probably describe him as kind of like a one-of-a-kind student. He still kind of holds a special place in my heart that nobody has been able to replace him yet. Just kind of a funny story about Steven, and this is the type of student he was. I was probably like yelling at him for something to get back on track because he wasn't paying attention or he was joking around, and the principal walked in with a bunch of other people to observe me, and all of a sudden he turned it on like he was student of the year. And when they left, I said, oh, it's nice to see that you could be a real student, and he told me it was nice to see that I could actually be a real teacher and teach, because I don't do that on a normal basis.